Welcome to Open Asia Forum, the podcast by GOSIM, where we speak with researchers, builders, and operators working at the frontier of AI, open source systems, and real-world technology. So I'm Eric Wong from CSTN. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Tiberiu Socaci. So thank you again for taking the time to speak with us. So for this conversation, we would love to explore a few themes around self-evolving applications, workflow design, enterprise trust, agentic systems, vibe coding, and what's maybe overestimated or underestimated in this next generation of AI software. So to begin, I'd love to start with you with a brief introduction to say hello to our audience.
Hi, as you said, I'm Tiberiu Socaci. I'm the founder of an AI automation agency called Makeitfuture, and been playing around in the automation space for the last 7 years, and very fond of the latest advancements into AI, LLMs, and of course vibe coding.
Yeah, before the question starts, I'll follow up with small questions like. What's inspired you to Makeitfuture to come GOSIM? What is the connection with the Makeitfuture?
I think the idea of doing more and sharing more and having an open ecosystem. Maybe we're talking about sometimes applications, frameworks, and more recently LLMs. That's opening up real opportunities for businesses and entrepreneurs, right, to start new things without relying always on the key players in whatever that may be, SaaS platforms or LLM models, right? Yeah. So being able to really execute and do execute towards your dream with open source, I think that's something we need to keep. Everything's going more closed recently, and I think we need to push more and more towards opening open code, open LLMs, open world at the end of the day.
I see. So when we hear the phrase self-evolving applications now, it sounds exciting, but it can also mean many different things in practice. So to start very simply, so what does it really mean in practice for an app to get smarter every time it is used? So which layer is actually evolving, the user experience, the workflow logic, or the decision-making structure of the software itself?
Yeah, so while developing different applications, without AI at the end of the day, sometimes you code that application, you architect the different workflows, database, and so on. And when working with AI, I noticed a lot of time that, you add AI in certain workflows, but then you're kind of stuck within those workflows. And in order to improve the guidance, the instructions towards that workflow, you need to go and edit those functions, right?
Yeah.
But more recently, when you look at AI and how different agentic systems are architected, like Cloud Code, like Codex, like Hermes agent, which is open source. You look at this harness system, how they are engined, and with the skills in the back, you can realize that, it's enough to just update that part, and the app could run on top of that improvement, right? So then if we look at, what self-evolving really means, on one side is, what are the instructions towards the AI? And that can always update based on the skills and based on the architecture that you put behind that, let's say Hermes agent or Codex or system. But if you architect it correctly, you could also make that improve and evolve the interface as well, right? If you let's call it, for example, I recently created for myself a very simple email application which goes to Gmail, takes all my email, puts that in different categories, creates some replies, creates some button for automatic archiving and things like that. The way I architected the front end of that was, I need to have dynamic grouping. And then the skill and the AI will define what is actually the different groups I'm interested in. Maybe right now I have 3-4 groups, like urgent, archivable, reply later and whatever, but 3 months from now, I'll come up with a different idea. I will tell the AI, hey, improve this grouping, and that will automatically influence the interface.
Yeah. So a lot of AI workflows looks impressive in demos, but much less often in real business environments, in real products. So in your experience, what separates a workflow that looks impressive in a demo from one that can actually survive the complexity of real business operations?
The workflows that we see in demo is generally in a controlled environment with a controlled set of data, so it looks nice on YouTube, it looks nice on presentations. I think the difference is not really between, okay, is this possible in real production or not, is setting up the right expectations and the right constraints into the, let's say, an enterprise environment. And what I try to say by that, if you present a workflow that runs perfectly on the demo, and then you will say this will always run perfectly, that might be a challenge. If you set the expectation that there might be a need of human in the loop, there might be a need for adjusting and reconfiguring that for a time until you get to that proper execution. I think the step between going from, 90% always being okay towards 99%, that's a long road. And that's the hardest part with AI. In a demo, you're figuring out the perfect variables and it runs 100% in that environment. Once you go in a big architecture, in a big enterprise with governance and all that, you're going to have some more restrictions and you might have more variability, and then it will not work as perfect. But with the right expectations, with the right guidance, and with the right improvement, it will get there. It just takes more time.
Let me think about a saying that when vibe coding is coming up and people say vibe coding is only used for the prototype. And if you want the real products, not only the prototype, then you need to abandon the vibe coding. Do you agree that? Or
I don't. Okay, I'm coming from again a no code and a vibe code in the environment, and I truly believe companies can leverage that.
Yeah.
Of course, being a user that doesn't have the background to really understand how to ask the AI to do something, I think that there's still a gap there. Okay, starting with an application that it's architected correctly, starting with an application that has the right governance in terms of security, in terms of who has access to the data, creating the different layers that make sense for the app. I think it's a required thing, and that's why I believe we can still use it doing that in a right way, applying the right path for security, and we can look now at Anthropic, right, and OpenAI. They are not releasing; they are pre-releasing models that do cybersecurity, right? So practically, they say, hey, all these models are finding bugs and finding exploit modes that are in the market for 30 years, right? So we can see that AI can be very good if instructed correctly. So I think vibe coding can work very well. You can be 10 times more productive. It can be very fast, but you still need to go over the understanding, okay, the architecture, taking the right decision with the AI, and then testing and checking the security of that application. But the code itself, the AI itself will generate faster than we can, for sure.
I see. So companies have traditionally bought software for predictability, traceability, and control. So as systems become more adaptive, what do you think is the biggest trust barrier companies still need to overcome?
What I'm seeing in the biggest push I see back from companies is, will this AI model that I'm going to use, will this AI model get trained on my data? Or if it's an open source model, is this open source model safe? Does it have any kind of ways to send data or things like that? And that's also because people do not really understand, okay, how it works, the architecture of that. Generally, the way I like to think about this is, on one side, if you're an organization that's using, Google Cloud, and you're hosting everything on your Google Drive, shared drives, and stuff like that, you probably already have Google as an approved provider for that.
Yeah.
So the easiest step is first go towards maybe Gemini, right? And if you're a Microsoft, the easiest step maybe is go directly to Azure. But at the same time, if you're building something that will require a ton of tokens over time, if at some point you really need to understand, okay, do I have the right application solution? Maybe go and use an open source model, right? I don't think everybody should start with that, because it's a lot faster and cheaper to just go get an API key, get a subscription with whichever open router or with whatever Cloud Code, and just start doing some stuff. But once you have a platform, once you have a solution and you want to then make it available within the company, that's where you need to look at, okay, what is the best option to get this going. But the biggest trust is like in the issue in the companies is related, will it be trained on my data? And I think that's something we need to understand. It's not done.
Agree. So people use the word agentic very broadly now. And for your perspective, where do you see the real line between traditional workflow automation and today's agentic systems? Is this an upgrade into tooling or the beginning of a different software model altogether?
I think it's both. If a process is very definable, static, with the logic that you can implement, I think having a scenario in a platform like Make or NA10 or a Python script doing it, I think that's good enough. And there's no need for unpredictability of an AI to take a decision there, right? So automation, I think, is still 100 times cheaper, if not more. So integrating two systems together, it just makes sense. Now, is this opening up a new layer of applications? For sure. What I think is very important is these agentic applications that start to have access towards different platforms through CLI or through MCP opened up a new level of application, because you can instruct generically what your application needs to do. So, for example, I want a follow-up sales agent, right? And I build it once right now. And for customer one, I will apply it on Salesforce, and I will just install the MCP for Salesforce. And for the next customer, I will install it on HubSpot, right? Or an open CRM. But the core of the application, the core of the instruction, the core of how you're going to deploy it and all that stays the kind of the same. It's just a matter, okay, I just need a few other tools here, a few other MCPs, a few other CLIs to control the app, right? And that changes the scope from always having to really customize very deep into workflows, into scripting. It changes the scope just, okay, here's the app, here's the agent, here's the skills, and here's the new endpoints that you need to use, test it, run it, and then updating the skills to really work with the new things that you connected.
What is the clearest sign that a system has truly crossed the line from like a workflow to the agentic systems?
I think for me that line is the agent in control of the steps, right? If the agent needs to take a decision, go fetch this information from email, go compare it with some marketing ICP, and then go and create the lead inside a CRM, okay? Those steps are, and he's doing that autonomously, it's agentic, right? I would argue for the fact that if you know that the steps are always the same, okay, take the information, then fetch some information from another platform like maybe Apollo, and then have an AI analyze it. The first two steps should be done by scripting or by automation. Push the data to the AI to take a decision, right or left, and then create or don't create the lead. You can allow the AI to be fully autonomous on that, but you will then again rely too much on him taking the right decision to go there, which is, again, you're putting another variable into the process, which is not always needed.
Okay. So there's a lot of excitement around vibe coding and AI native product creation we just mentioned. So in real delivery environments, what do you think people still underestimate about the path from fast generation to production ready system?
What they overestimate?
Pardon?
I didn't get the end of the question. What they
Yeah. What do you think people still underestimate about the path from a fast generation to production ready systems?
I think so. In a bit similar to the previous question, right? In fast generation, sometimes if you're just prototyping, the result will be very fast. You will get very fast an app or a web platform with nice web pages with all the different forms and stuff. But then really having the right process workflow into a certain step there, correlating the information from multiple platforms and showcasing exactly what it needs to be done. I was working one of these days, actually yesterday, on the plane coming here to Paris. I'm transitioning towards a custom ERP internally for Makeitfuture. So I was working on, how do I consolidate all the time tracking of different employees, and then how do we, based on that, we create the salaries, and then you do the bank payment. And I was recreating this, and getting the interface was very fast. In few hours, I had more than I could imagine. But then figuring out exactly how I want to do that, even though I've done it before, making that I really understand exactly step by how to correlate all that information, it took me probably 5-6 hours yesterday to do that. Which, if you would ask me to estimate before on a product, I would say, okay, that would take maybe 1-2 hours. But reality is sometimes on these small things, it might take more time than the things that used to take us a lot of time. Creating the page nicely, with a responsive design, with nice flows and all, that took more in the past. But now it takes more time to do the logic behind, I would say.
So as more software is generated faster, so which parts of the engineering burden actually remain the hardest? So like system architecture or integration or governance or something else?
I think the hardest part from my perspective is still getting from the business issues, business idea or business challenges, getting that information down into specific processes and specific applications that need to be built, and architect that. And once you have this, let's call it a discovery process really in place with a proper specification on what you're trying to build, I would say that's probably the hardest part. Once that's in place, if you have a proper documentation, a specification, architect it correctly, you go to an AI, step by step, build, test, and you're going to have it. But regardless of AI or not, even before that, even just by looking at coding platforms or integrations, it was still the hardest part. Making sure that you understand the business problem, you have the right solution to fix the business problem, and then create a proper specification for that. Because otherwise, you're building something, and at the end, you're going to have something that it's something you don't like, or something that's not useful for your business, right? So those are, I think, that's key. So us as humans, I think that's kind of the thing that will still keep us involved into the process, analyzing the processes, understanding how we want that process. And those process, you might say, okay, but AI can go over and look at a sales process. But every company has their own sales process, customized for them in the way sometimes it's better for their business, it's more liked by their management. There's certain particularities that do not translate from a customer to customer, from a company to company.
I see. So after AI coding being popular this year, many people would drop the picture in the future that thinks about everyone can become developer, so everyone can be coding, and no more programmer, or everyone is a programmer. But I think the non-developer, the people that never coding before, their lack of the sense of programmer, like when you're facing a problems, the programmer will just using the coding to fix out any difficulty they mentioned. But for the non-developer, they will never think about, oh, I can coding any software to solve my problem. They're losing the sense of the programmer. I think losing the experience, losing the taste. So how do you think about this?
I don't know if they are losing it or they never had it.
They
right?
never had the lack
Right?
of, their lack of.
Their lack. I think that's true.
Yeah.
However,
So how can we acquire this sense?
I think and people that do not know code,
Yeah.
I think they start generally very fast.
Oh,
They
yeah.
even, I would say, have an advantage over coders because they don't spend time looking back at what that AI generated, right? They don't not gonna spend time reading all the stuff that AI will ask them. Generally, I've seen some people doing this. It's like I just go,
Yeah.
right? And they go and look at the result and they're always happy. But of course, down the road, they will have some challenges at some point when it's, again, the application is maybe not secure or not architected completely and things like that. So I think experience will teach them that
Yeah.
they need to have some good starting points if they do not want to redo that again, or in some cases they build this MVP and then they come with the MVP towards an agency like Makeitfuture to help them productize that, right? Because they didn't have the right skills to do it from the start. So in my opinion, getting trained to really understand some of the concepts, it's really mandatory for anybody starting building with vibe coding. Understanding what relational database means, understanding what variables are, understanding what environment variables are, understanding a bit about the stack. Is this running on my computer? Is this running in the cloud? What does it mean to be a user segregated access? How do you do like row level security? These few concepts, I think, and there's probably a lot of information about this on the internet, right? But there are a few concepts that they are programming concepts, but should be easy to understand for anybody who tries to build an app, right? And if you have that in mind, and then you think about your business process, how you translate that into relational databases as an example, right? It could be easy for somebody to understand. Again, I think the difference is you need to put the time into it, right? And sometimes you will learn that upfront, and sometimes you will learn that by practice and by being beaten by the lack of experience.
Cool. Yeah. So you have spoken about building the missing link through custom connectors, webhooks, and API bridges. So in the AI era, do you think this connective layer is becoming more important rather than less?
I think if we look back 2 years from 2 years ago, right? We had ChatGPT. Nice, you can ask him a question. It will tell you. It will do a summary of an article. It will help you write something, and that's it, right? But then if you compare that experience towards a Codex or an agentic solution today, it's all about having the right data at hand, right? Check my email, tell me if there's something urgent. Without an email connectivity, there's no way it can do that, right? And that's why we see a lot of push towards MCP and more recently towards CLI. As a company, we were not really working too much with like self-hosted VPS and things like that. We were very driven towards cloud solutions before, but nowadays, because of all these new systems, because of open source things, we started looking a lot more. And nowadays, I don't go to Google Cloud and deploy a new VPS. I go to Cloud or I go to Cloud and say, okay, you have my Google CLI, go deploy a new VPS that needs to be this, and that, and install these 3 softwares on it, right? And there you go, you have the new VPS running, which is all about connectivity.
So today a lot of attention goes to model companies and the software platforms. But in real world AI adoption, where do you think the real power sits? So in the model or in the platform or in the teams that can actually connect systems and make them work reliably?
I think So there's a lot of discussions on the market. Is this a AI bubble or not, right?
Yeah.
And even in my personal opinion, even if the development of the models will stop today, let's say this is the best we have, even if this will be 6 months ago, okay, and even in the last 6 months we got a lot better, right? The value that's available within companies to identify and to improve with these models that we have today, it's immense, right? So I think the models open up those possibilities. Now, is the model enough? No, for sure not. Getting from that model, being able to convince, then to have the different systems, right, to use those models, very important, because before Cloud Code, for example, you didn't have a so, let's say, powerful hardware system that you could use agentically in building something like self-evolving apps. But at the same time, I think from my perspective, the biggest challenge is convincing the stakeholders in different companies, identifying the right processes, and then applying these systems with the different LLM models. The model itself, it might be right now, we don't even know what's the best. Could be, I don't know, Claude 4.7 or Codex 5.5 or Kimi. At the end of the day, maybe there's going to always be a difference, but the open source is coming so fast from behind. I think in a short period, it is good enough, even now, it's good enough for the most use cases. It's not top level maybe at coding, but most of the process don't really require like expert coding, expert senior developer for everything, right? You just need sometimes, okay, here's my simple process, here's the skill, execute this for me, make a draft for me. And for that, there's enough open source model that you can do with that, right? So to get, I did a bit of a side tour here, right? But to go back to your real question, I think the biggest opportunity there and the biggest thing is getting the adoption inside. And once you start adopting it, change management, making the users, right, use it on a daily, so create it and then use it. That's probably the biggest change there and challenge.
Okay, I see. So your work also touches the gap between strategic ambition and delivery capabilities. So as AI changes how software is built, how do you see the role of specialist implementation partners evolving?
Yeah, I think it's changing a lot. And it's changing because AI suddenly allows you to just generate interfaces, generate code, forms, whatever, in a very fast way. Now, for us, for example, for Makeitfuture, we still build a lot on top of workflow automation platforms because we strongly believe in the observability and the easier maintenance mode. So being able to go inside a workflow, seeing the history, seeing the step-by-step execution, being able to diagnose that when there's an edge case, it's a lot easier than tracking inside a function that Claude created and deployed inside, let's say, a Supabase, right? You could build the different parts of that, but it will take you, again, you would need to build your own observability platform there. While using so many external platforms, I think that's decreasing. To give you an example, a few years back when we were doing a new case, right? Yeah. We would need to identify, okay, how does this workflow begin? Okay, let's say it's customer support inquiry form, right? Yeah. So we would need to build this on a website. We'd say, okay, do you have some kind of a platform to build this, right? What are you using? Maybe WordPress. Okay, so let's put there a WordPress extension for the form. Okay, but the one we want needs to be dynamically and needs to have this and that. So practically you're gonna, okay, so maybe we need to sign up for or buy an extension or buy another type form or something to really have the experience that the customer wants. Nowadays, you can generate that with AI. You generate exactly the form that you want. You have the logic in the form the way you want in few iterations with AI, and you take that code, you put it on top of your website, or you can feed it with a webhook from Make or NA10, and suddenly you have a new form. Am I still required to go and sign up for Typeform? Not for simple use cases. If I have more advanced use cases where I want to maybe see and analyze the data within the platform, yes, maybe I will go for a Typeform or for the Tally form. But if it's a simple use case, maybe just generating that form, putting it on the website, send a response to a workflow automation, process it, and send it to a CRM is good enough. So I think the big change will be, okay, some SaaS platforms need to really figure out what is their value proposition into the market, because it starts to be less.
Okay. So finally, across these buzzwords today, it's like AI automation, agentic applications, and next generation workflow tools, what do you think, which buzzword is currently the most overestimated idea, and what is still being underestimated?
I think maybe overestimated. I'm not sure what would be really overestimated there. I think the simplicity of hey, it just works. You're gonna go few prompts and then it will work flawlessly. I think that's kind of the overestimation, and I think that's kind of what in Makeitfuture we kind of discovered that setting up the right expectations from day one with the customer, and that those expectations related to how this will work, how much intervention from human needs to be there, what is the predictable cost on that. Because if you test, like you're working with a subscription of an AI, right, and you have a workflow that has, I don't know, 20 steps into it. Analyze these, go fetch that data, do a deep research on some subject.
Yeah.
You're paying 20 euros a month and you're using as much as you can. When you switch from that to an API key, you suddenly realize you're spending millions of tokens, and it's costing you every request you want to process for a new, let's say, lead. It costs you $100 in terms of tokens, and you're like, okay, but this is not sustainable. So understanding from the start what that is, doing some estimations, and how much people need to be involved into the product, I think that's probably the most
Resonated, yeah.
thing. And on the other side, underestimated, I think it's the agentic process itself. I think people don't really. Most people have not spent enough time with these agentic systems.
Yeah, that's true.
They have an opinion that they develop maybe after playing with one of the models for a few days, and probably they even do this today. Okay, so they use it in a very simple manner.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they see that, okay, I'm asking it something and it gives me a stupid answer. And yes, that happens. And I hope that's still going to be our biggest advantage as human, being critical about what you get from the AI.
That's true.
And I like to build, I have a lot of automated workflows for me, agentified workflows for me. But I always like to see a summary of the input and the decision of the AI and the output, right? I like to be in control of what I see there. Yeah, you can put it on automatic pilot. Would you get always the best result? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. If you hire a person today and you tell them, okay, from starting today you're going to do all the, quotations, all the support, will you be always 100% happy with the work they do? Not really, because sometimes they lack information.
Yeah.
Because they lack information, which means historical information about the customer, historical about the culture of the company or the way we do things. And that's exactly what is missing also on the AI side. The more the AI knows about that process and has access to the information, the better it can take a decision. And that's why I think people still see it in a very narrow scope. There's a lot of potential there for people to implement these kind of solutions. But it needs to be implemented the right way.
Okay. So Tiberiu, thank you again for joining us today. So we really appreciate your perspective on these amazing ideas and where the next real leveraging AI software may come from. So, and thanks to all our listeners for joining us. Please continue following GOSIM Foundation on X and YouTube and other platforms for more conversation at the frontier of open source and AI. So, about the Makeitfuture, where can we follow the new release or the news and yourself?
Thanks a lot for the invitation. Really appreciate it. Happy to see all these people here, and very impressed about the hackathon that's happening here. About me, follow me and connect with me over LinkedIn. Happy to support both on the developer side and experience, but as well if any company is looking for support, reach out. We're happy to have new customers. Always happy to have new customers. You can find more about us on makeitfuture.com. And if you're interested in this self-evolving concept, self-evolving.app, AAPP, it's the link for it.
Okay. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Tiberiu.